Fermented carrot sticks are delicious and crunchy. They're ready to enjoy once they're fermented, or they can last in the root cellar or refrigerator for years. They're a rich probiotic food like kombucha and sauerkraut, so they're a good addition to have in your diet so that you can diversify your gut bacteria for good gut health. And once made, they're a quick snack to enjoy or to bring out when you have guests arrive, now that that's a thing again. Hi guys, and welcome to Moat, Cottage, Homesteading, the small space homesteading channel. Making fermented carrots is a good way to preserve your homegrown carrots if you have a place to store them like a fridge or a root cellar. Peel and cut your carrots into carrot sticks. Now, some things you need to take into consideration when you are fermenting foods is that you need clean hands. Now, obviously that's something you do when you're cooking anyway, but you want to make sure they're clean but there's no soapy residue, especially that antibacteria type of soap that some people use these days, because that's not going to help the good bacteria grow if we're killing it. So we want to create an environment for good bacteria to grow, so we need to have sterilised equipment. I've got sterilised quart jars and weights here, which I will talk about a bit later, but they're sterilised, there's no soapy residue left in them, so the good bacteria can thrive in that environment, but they're clean so we don't have any bad bacteria. And we also have to consider the type of water we're going to be using in the brine. I'll move that out of the way. So the type of water that we use needs to be filtered water or spring water if you've got spring water, if you're lucky enough to have a spring. You don't want to be using chlorinated water or fluoride water. Obviously chlorine kills bacteria, and like I said earlier, we need to be creating an environment for the good bacteria to thrive. Cut the carrots into even-sized pieces and place them in your jars. You can leave the skins on if you want. If you're using shop-bought carrots, I wouldn't be doing that. But if they're homegrown, you can leave the skins on, but that's personal preference. Fermenting carrots is my favourite way to preserve carrots because they maintain their natural form, so that they're great to just enjoy with dips and a cheese platter. Obviously there are other ways to preserve carrots, like pressure canning, dehydrating, putting them in the freezer, freeze drying, and I'm probably missing one. But fermented carrots, for me, is the best way to have them. However, you do need to have a root cellar or fridge space to store your fermented foods. We want to fit as many carrots in as we can, and we want to leave headspace so that the liquid can be above the carrots. If you like your ferments crunchy, then you need to start with fresh carrots. Don't be using carrots that are 3 months old out of the root cellar or the fridge, because you can't turn limp carrots or older carrots into fresh crunchy carrots. To make the brine to cover the carrots, I use a ratio of 1 cup of water to 1 tablespoon of sea salt. Now, we don't know how many cups we're going to be using because it really depends on how many carrots are in the jar. I'm going to make up about 6 cups worth, so I'll add in 6 tablespoons of the sea salt. Don't use salt that's iodized or has any anti-caking agents in it. Use a good quality sea salt. I'll add in 2 cups of boiling water so that the salt can dissolve, and then the other 4 cups will be cold filtered water. The boiling water is also filtered. Give it a good mix in so the salt is dissolved properly. I'll add my 4 cups of water. I've added the extra 4 cups of cold filtered water, and now it's all mixed in and ready to cover the carrots. Just make sure that's not too hot, and it's not. We want the brine to be warm, but not too hot. Remove the air bubbles by working a knife or your debubbling tool, if you are a canner, around the edge of the jar and just squeeze in, and that removes any air bubbles. We don't want air bubbles in our ferments because oxygen creates mould, and that's what we're trying to avoid. We need the carrots to be fully covered with the brine at all times so that they don't go mouldy. I use these weights that are designed for this purpose. I do a lot of fermenting, so it was an investment and it was well worth it. I'll leave the link in the description below if you want to purchase some, because they are worth it if you are going to be fermenting regularly. Otherwise, you can use a clean rock about this size that can weight down the carrots to keep them under the brine, or you could use a glass jar that fits in nicely. We want the air out and the carrots under. And you can see how good they work. And this goes for when you're using the carrots as well. You always want to leave enough brine in the leftover jar with the carrots that are left so that the carrots are always covered. Use a clean damp cloth to remove any residue from around the jar so that it's nice and clean. And if any little bits of carrot float up to the top above the glass, just take them out. But my carrots all seem to be fairly evenly sized, so we're not having that problem. Okay. At this stage, you can add a lid and place your jar in a warm location out of direct sunlight, but you will need to remove the lid every day to let the gases out so that it doesn't build up too much pressure. And that's just for the fermenting process while it's out. Once it's finished fermenting, you can place your lid back on and put it in the fridge or the root cellar, and the lid can stay on and it's not a problem. If you're doing a lot of ferments, it's also good to invest in pickle pipes. They have a little hole in the top there, and that lets the gases out but no oxygen in. And this is really the busy person's way to do it. If you're doing a lot of ferments, it's really worth investing in these pickle pipes. And they just get placed on, and a canning ring holds them in place. Because my pickle pipes are going to be letting the gases out for me, I don't need to burp the jars every day, so I'm going to check in on my carrots in 3 days' time to see how they're going. Usually ferments around here take about 7 days, especially at this time of year. For some reason we're having a really cool spring. We don't have heating in this room, so it can take a little bit longer for the ferments to ferment. So I'll taste the carrot, see how it's going, and then I'll probably just keep checking every day to see how they're tasting. And when they're at a flavour that I really like, I'll remove the pickle pipes and the rings, and I'll just place the plastic jar lids on, and then I will place them in the fridge. Or you can place them in the root cellar if you're lucky enough to have a root cellar. These carrots are over 12 months old. For some reason we have 2 jars open instead of just finishing one. And you can see this white film around the inside of the jar rim. That's perfectly fine. That's not bad at all. If it was black or green or some hideous colour like that, then I would be throwing them out and they would be no good. These are beautiful and still perfectly fine. When you're using your ferments out of the jar, always use a clean utensil that hasn't got anything else on it, and make sure the rest of the carrots are covered by the brine at all times. They're still really crunchy at over 12 months old. Not bad, hey? If you find the flavours getting too strong for you as they age, you can rinse the carrots off with some cold water before you serve them up. They're pretty good. If you're not used to eating ferments, I do recommend that you start off slow. Don't go in and eat a whole jar of the carrots. The same goes with sauerkraut as well. You don't go in and eat a whole lot because your tummy and your body is just not used to it. So introduce it slowly and have a little bit every day, and then you can build up your tolerance to how many you can have, because you don't want to eat a whole lot and then get a sore tummy or have a reaction that you don't necessarily want to have. It is really good for you, but moderation to start with. Anyway, thanks for all the likes, shares, and for subscribing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.